They found the human prison ship where no prison ship should have survived. It drifted beyond the map trade lanes, past the last fuel markers, in a region of deep space where even pirates lowered their engines and crossed quietly. The vessel was older than most empires. Its hull was blackened by radiation, scarred by impacts, and long enough to cast a shadow across an entire salvage fleet. No beacon called for help. No weapon system tracked them. No engine burned. It simply floated in the dark, enormous and silent, like something the universe had tried to forget. Captain Veyr Kaldan of the Soryth Salvage Guild watched it from the bridge of the cutter glass knife and smiled with all 4 rows of teeth. "Human make," he said. His crew went still. That was the proper reaction. Human relics were valuable because humans built things to last beyond reason. Their warships became museums. Their colony machines still worked after centuries under ice. Their emergency systems woke up after asteroid strikes and apologized for the delay. But human military vessels were different. They were not treasures. They were arguments waiting to resume. Navigator Pell leaned closer to his display. "Captain, the hull registry is damaged. I can recover only partial identification." "Read it." Pell swallowed. "HCS Black Mercy." No one spoke after that. Kaldan had heard the name once, in a smuggler's prayer muttered over bad liquor and worse maps. Black Mercy was supposed to be a ghost story from the old containment war, when humanity had fought things the rest of the galaxy still refused to classify as living species. A human prison ship. A mobile vault. A place where monsters went when execution was too dangerous and mercy was too expensive. Kaldan's smile widened. Ghost stories paid well. Life signs? None. Power? Minimal reserve. Deep internal systems only. Weapons? Cold. Boarding risk? Pell hesitated. Unknown. Kaldan turned slowly. Pell corrected himself. Manageable. That was better. A salvage captain survived by knowing which words fed courage. Kaldan opened a fleet channel to his 3 cutters and 2 cargo haulers. "Boarding teams prepare. We claim under derelict law. Anything sealed, cut it. Anything marked human military, tag it. Anything that looks like a weapon, do not touch until I see it first." His first officer, Rask, clicked his mandibles. "And if there are bodies?" Kaldan looked at the dead ship. "Then thank them for guarding our profit." The first boarding shuttle crossed the gap 10 minutes later. Its floodlights swept over the hull, revealing old blast craters and lines of human warning script half erased by time. Most of it meant nothing to the Soryth translators. Too degraded. Too old. Too burned. But one phrase repeated near every docking port. Rask read it aloud as the shuttle clamped onto the airlock. "Do not open without Warden authority." He laughed. "Humans and their ceremonies." The cutter crew laughed with him. Quietly. Kaldan did not. Not because he believed the warning. Because human warnings had a way of becoming expensive when ignored. The airlock resisted for 13 minutes. Then human metal surrendered with a shriek. The boarding team entered. Their helmet feeds appeared on the glass knife's main display. The corridor beyond the lock was narrow, dark, and lined with thick doors on both sides. Not crew quarters. Cells. Every cell door stood open. Rask stopped walking. "Captain." Kaldan leaned forward. The first cell was empty. So was the second. The third contained broken restraints bolted into the wall, each one thicker than a landing strut. The fourth had claw marks burned into the floor. The fifth had something like dried glass spread across the ceiling, as if a prisoner had melted upward. Pell whispered, "Where are they?" Kaldan did not answer. The boarding team advanced. Cell after cell. Open. Empty. Open. Empty. No bodies. No dust piles. No frozen remains. No signs of evacuation. Only open doors and the feeling that every cage had once held something that had spent centuries thinking about the lock. Then Rask found the first intact sign. It hung at the end of the corridor beneath a dead red light. The letters were not faded. Someone had carved them deep into the metal by hand. Not prisoners. Contained extinction events. Rask's laughter died. Pell looked sick. Kaldan felt the first true cold of the ship pass through him. Extinction events. Not criminals. Not soldiers. Events. The kind of language humans used when a thing could not be negotiated with, punished, or understood as an individual. "Captain," Rask said, voice lower now, "we should withdraw." Kaldan stared at the feed. He saw empty cells. Broken restraints. Human alloy. Ancient systems. Untouched technology worth enough to buy 3 moons. And fear, trying to dress itself as wisdom. "No," he said. "Continue." The team reached a central chamber. It was round, vast, and open through several decks. At its center hung a vertical cryo-pod wrapped in black cables, suspended above the floor like a coffin held by machine hands. Unlike everything else on the ship, it still had power. Blue light moved under the glass. A human body rested inside. Small. Old. Female. White hair floated around her face in the suspension fluid. Her skin was lined with age, her hands folded over a faded officer's uniform. She looked fragile enough for a child to wake. Above the pod, one warning screen still worked. Rask lifted his helmet light. The translator struggled, then resolved the message. "All cells open. Containment failure assumed. Do not wake the warden." Kaldan stared at the old woman in the pod. Then every open cell door on the ship began closing by itself. The cell doors closed slowly. That was what made it worse. They did not slam like a trap. They did not crash shut with theatrical violence. They moved with calm hydraulic patience, each massive human-made door sliding into place as if the ship was simply correcting an old mistake. Rask spun toward the corridor. Back to the airlock. The boarding team ran. Too late. The first door sealed ahead of them. Then the next. Then the next. One by one, the open cages became walls. Rask slammed his cutter into the nearest locking seam. Sparks scattered across the corridor. The door did not mark. On the glass knife, Captain Veyr Kaldan gripped the arms of his command chair. "Override it." Pell's hands moved across the console too quickly. "I'm trying." The ship is not accepting external commands. It was dead. It was sleeping. No one liked that correction. Inside the central chamber, the cryopod holding the old human woman began to drain. Blue suspension fluid sank through hidden vents. Frost cracked across the glass. The black cables around the pod tightened, then released one by one. Rask backed away from it. "Captain, the pod is waking her." Kaldan opened a channel to the boarding team. "Do not touch the human." Rask laughed once, high and frightened. "That was not in my plans." The warning screen above the pod changed. Warden revival sequence active. Unauthorized boarders detected. Containment status, unknown. Then a second line appeared beneath it. Prisoner count required. Pell whispered, "Prisoner count." The ship answered. Not through the screen. Through every speaker across the salvage fleet. "Counting." The voice was human. Female. Old. Not awake yet, but already present. Every Soryth ship went silent. The Black Mercy began to scan itself. Lights woke along the prison decks. Red beams passed through corridors, sealed cells, ventilation shafts, cargo holds, machine rooms, and collapsed sections of hull. The old ship trembled as systems that should have died centuries ago pulled power from somewhere deep and angry. Then the count appeared on every display. Contained units, 0. Confirmed dead, 0. Unaccounted, 19. Pell stopped breathing. Kaldan stared at the number. 19. 19 extinction events had been sealed aboard the Black Mercy. 19 were no longer in their cells. And none were confirmed dead. Rask's helmet feed shook as he turned in a full circle. The central chamber was empty except for his team, the waking pod, and the feeling of unseen things behind sealed doors. "Captain," he whispered, "where are they?" Before Kaldan could answer, one of the cargo haulers screamed. Not the crew. The ship. Its hull sensors shrieked across the fleet channel as something struck its outer plating from the dark side, where no shuttle, drone, or boarding craft had been recorded. The hauler's lights flickered. A strip of metal peeled away from its side as if opened by invisible fingers. Pell shouted, "Contact on Hauler 2. Identify." "I can't. It is not on thermal. Not on radar. Not on mass scan." The hauler captain appeared on screen, mandibles shaking. "We have hull breach in cargo bay 3. Something is inside." Kaldan stood. "Seal the bay." "We did." A pause. The hauler captain looked off screen. "It sealed us out." Then his feed cut. On the Black Mercy, the pod glass unlocked. Steam rolled across the central chamber floor. The old human woman opened her eyes. She did not gasp. She did not scream. She did not look confused. She simply stared through the glass at Rask with pale grey eyes that had seen too much to waste emotion on surprise. Rask raised his weapon by instinct. The human's eyes moved to the rifle. Her voice came through the chamber speakers before her lips moved. "Put that down before something worse notices you." Rask froze. Kaldan leaned toward the screen. "Human," he said, forcing authority into his voice. "Identify yourself." The woman turned her head slightly, as if hearing him across a great distance. "Warden Mara Ell," she said. "Human Containment Service. Black Mercy Command Authority." Pell murmured, "Warden Authority confirmed." Kaldan ignored him. "This vessel is claimed under derelict salvage law." The old woman blinked once. "Then your law has a short life expectancy." Rask lowered his weapon halfway. Mara Ell looked around the chamber. "How many doors were open when you boarded?" No one answered. Her gaze sharpened. "How many?" Rask swallowed. "All of them." For the first time, something like pain crossed her face. Not fear. Grief sharpened into calculation. "How long since external breach?" Kaldan checked the mission clock. 34 minutes. The warden closed her eyes. "That is enough." "For what?" Kaldan demanded. Mara opened her eyes again. "For them to learn your ships have doors." A scream tore through the fleet channel. Hauler 2's lights went dark. Then one by one, the running lights came back on. But they were no longer white. They were red. The hauler turned slowly toward the salvage cutters. Pell's voice broke. "Captain, Hauler 2 is targeting us." Kaldan spun toward the weapons officer. "Disable it." "Captain, our people are aboard." Mara Ell's voice cut through the bridge, cold as vacuum. "Not anymore." On the main display, Hauler 2 opened fire. Hauler 2 fired first. The shot crossed the dark between ships in a straight white line and tore through the glass knife's forward shield like cloth through flame. The cutter lurched hard enough to throw 2 Soryth officers from their stations. Warning alarms screamed. Panels burst. A cloud of sparks rained over Captain Veyr Kaldan's command chair. "Return fire!" Kaldan shouted. The weapons officer obeyed. 3 pulse lances struck Hauler 2 along the engine spine. The captured cargo vessel twisted under the impacts, but it did not die. It did not even try to evade. It simply adjusted its angle and fired again. This time, the shot missed by less than 20 meters. Pell's voice cracked. "That was a correction shot." Kaldan turned. "Meaning?" "The first shot taught it our shield reaction time." A cold silence entered the bridge. On the Black Mercy feed, Warden Mara Ell stepped out of the cryo-pod on unsteady legs. She should have looked weak. She had been asleep for centuries. Her muscles should have failed. Her hands should have trembled. They did. But her eyes did not. Rask and his boarding team stared as the old woman gripped the side of the pod, breathed once, then pulled herself upright through pure hatred of delay. "Warden," Rask said, voice shaking, "what took Hauler 2? Mara looked toward the chamber wall as if she could see through decks, hull, vacuum, and distance. "Threshold 9, she said. Kaldan snapped over the channel. "Give me a real name." "That is the real name humans survived long enough to use." Hauler 2 fired a third time. The glass knife rolled under the beam, losing another strip of shield. Behind them, one of the smaller salvage cutters tried to flee. Its engines flared blue. For 2 seconds, it pulled away. Then every airlock on that cutter opened at once. Crew, cargo, atmosphere, tools, and loose bodies burst into space. The cutter kept moving, hollow and dead. No one spoke. Mara did. Do not run through doors it can see. Kaldan stared at her image. What is it? The Warden took one careful step from the pod. An extinction event that learned architecture before it learned speech. It does not kill ships. It convinces openings to become mouths. Pell whispered, that is impossible. Mara's eyes moved to him through the screen. You found a prison ship with 19 empty cells and thought salvage law mattered. Your sense of impossible is not useful. Rask looked down the sealed corridor behind him. Every door was closed now. Every lock glowed red. Warden, he said, are we safer inside or outside? Mara gave the answer too quickly. Neither. That was worse than hesitation. She walked to a dead command pillar in the chamber and placed one wrinkled hand against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Black Mercy recognized her skin through scar tissue, age, and cryo damage. The pillar lit white. Warden command active. Mara's voice sharpened. Black Mercy, containment audit. Prioritize external breaches. Ignore salvage authority. Restore human protocol. The ship answered in a low mechanical tone. Human protocol degraded. Then use what is left. Lights awakened across the prison ship. Not many. Enough. Along the outer hull, old weapon ports opened like tired eyes. Kaldan's crew flinched as the dead human vessel acquired targets. Kaldan's fear turned into anger. If you fire on my fleet. I am trying to keep your fleet from becoming its hands, Mara said. Hauler 2 turned again. This time its weapons did not aim at the glass knife. They aimed at the Black Mercy. Mara saw it. Rask. Your team has 12 seconds. To do what? Cut the pod cables and carry the black case beneath them. Rask looked under the cryo frame. A rectangular case was locked into the base, stamped with human hazard markings and 3 mechanical seals. What is inside? My authority if I die. Move. The boarding team moved. Fear made them clumsy. Mara made them faster. Left seal first. No, not that one unless you want the case to remove your hands. Good. Second. Pull, do not twist. The first beam from Hauler 2 struck the Black Mercy. The prison ship groaned. Not like metal. Like something old remembering pain. On Kaldan's display, several sealed cells flickered from red to amber. Mara saw it too. Her face hardened. Do not let it hit us again. Kaldan laughed bitterly. Now you need my guns. No. I need your ships to become difficult food. He hated that he understood. Fleet, scatter pattern. No direct retreats. Rotate hulls. Seal every airlock, maintenance hatch, cargo bay, and internal pressure door. Weld them if you must. Pell looked at him. That is her order. Kaldan's teeth clenched. Then pretend I said it first. The salvage fleet moved. Badly. Too slowly. But it moved. Hauler 2 fired again. This time the combined point defense of 3 ships struck its weapon mount before the beam completed. The blast tore open the cargo vessel's nose. For one heartbeat, Kaldan thought they had won. Then the wound in Hauler 2's hull opened wider from the inside. Not damage. A doorway. Something looked out. No shape. No body. Only a depth where the ship should have had rooms. Every screen that captured it turned black. Pell screamed and covered his eyes. Mara did not look away. Threshold 9 has made visual contact, she said. Now it knows your bridge has entrances. Behind Kaldan, the bridge door unlocked. The bridge door unlocked. It was a small sound. A polite sound. A sound designed by engineers who believed doors existed to obey rooms, not monsters. Captain Veyr Kaldan turned slowly as the seal indicator above the bridge entrance changed from red to green. No one moved toward it. No one needed to. The door opened by itself. Beyond it was not the corridor of the glass knife. It was dark. Too dark. Not unlit. Not shadowed. Wrong. The space past the threshold seemed deeper than the ship allowed, as if the doorway had stopped caring where it was supposed to lead. Pell made a broken clicking sound. The weapons officer raised his sidearm. Warden Mara Ell's voice cut through the channel. "Do not fire through it." The officer froze with his claw on the trigger. Kaldan swallowed. "What happens if we fire?" "Then you teach it that violence can pass through." The bridge crew stared at the open door. Something breathed from the other side. Not lungs. A pressure change. The way a room might inhale. Kaldan forced his voice steady. "Can we close it?" Mara answered from the Black Mercy, where Rask's team was still dragging the Black Command case free beneath the cryo-pod. "Not by command. Threshold 9 has learned your door system." "Then what?" "Make the door irrelevant." Kaldan bared his teeth. "That is not an instruction." "For humans, it is." Mara turned toward Rask on the feed. "Black case. Open outer latch." Rask's hands shook over the case. "The one with the red band?" "No. The one beside it." "That one has teeth." "It has deterrence. Be precise." Rask opened the latch. The case unfolded into layers of old human tools. Not weapons in the Soryth sense. No plasma rifles. No grenades. No elegant killing devices. It held chalk-white sealant rods, copper wire, folding mirrors, old paper tags, thick black tape, a hand-cranked alarm, and several small blocks of dull grey metal. Rask stared. "This is a repair kit." Mara's mouth tightened. "This is why you are still thinking like prey." On the glass knife, the open bridge doorway widened without moving. That was the only way Kaldan could describe it. The frame remained the same size, but the darkness behind it became larger. A rail panel near the entrance bent inward, not broken, invited. A junior officer stepped back. The darkness copied the motion. A shape formed inside it. Not a body. A negative space where a body should not be. Mara saw it through the bridge feed. "Everyone on the glass knife, remove your eyes from the doorway." No one obeyed at first. Fear has gravity. Mara's voice cracked like a whip. "Look at the floor." Kaldan looked down. So did the bridge crew. The breathing stopped. Mara continued. "Threshold 9 uses attention as a hinge. If you stare, you give it a frame." Pell whispered, "How did humans contain this?" "Badly," Mara said. That answer was worse than comfort. The bridge door remained open. Kaldan kept his eyes on the deck plates. "Warden. Make the door irrelevant." Physical obstruction. Non-command closure. No automated lock. No system request. You must block the threshold with something the ship does not define as a door. Kaldan understood. A table. A bulkhead. Bodies. He looked at the emergency crash barrier folded into the ceiling above the bridge entrance. It was meant to drop during hull breach, but the door system controlled it. Useless. Then he saw the captain's command dais beneath his feet. Bolted. Heavy. Not a door. "Cut the chair loose," he ordered. His crew stared at him. "Now." 2 officers crawled under the dais with plasma tools, eyes down, hands shaking. Sparks fell across the bridge floor. The open doorway made no sound. That silence felt hungry. On the Black Mercy, Rask finally freed the black case from the cryo frame. Mara pointed to the grey metal blocks inside. "Take 3 null wedges. 1 mirror. Tape. Alarm." Rask grabbed them. "What are we doing?" "Teaching a thing that eats thresholds to distrust thresholds." "That makes no sense." "It did to 19 species too." Mara leaned against the command pillar, breath shallow. Cryo revival had aged her pain faster than her body could hide it, but she stayed upright because everyone else was still learning how afraid they should be. The glass knife crew cut the command dais free. "Push," Kaldan ordered. 6 Soryth shoved the heavy platform toward the bridge door without looking up. It scraped across the deck. The darkness beyond the doorway shifted, almost curious. A voice came from it. Kaldan's voice. "Stop." The crew froze. Kaldan's blood turned cold. The darkness spoke again, perfectly calm. "Stop. That is an order." Pell looked toward Kaldan. The real Kaldan said nothing. Mara did. Captain, give no counter-order. Move yourself. Kaldan understood a second late. If he corrected the false command, he gave command itself to the thing in the door. So he put his shoulder against the dais and pushed. One by one, the crew joined him. No words. Only wait. The dais slammed into the doorway. For a moment, the darkness pushed back. Then Rask, aboard the Black Mercy, placed the first null wedge against a sealed cell door under Mara's instruction. The open bridge doorway flickered. Mara said, again. Rask placed the mirror facing the wedge. Alarm. He cranked the little hand device. A harsh mechanical ringing filled the prison ship. The darkness in the glass knife doorway recoiled. Not from pain. From contradiction. A threshold blocked without closing. A reflection facing nothing. A sound made without signal. Human nonsense. Human survival. Kaldan shoved once more, and the dais jammed fully into the frame. The bridge was sealed. Not safely. But enough. Pell collapsed against his console. Kaldan looked at Mara on screen. What did that do? The warden's eyes were fixed on the tactical display, where Hauler 2 had stopped firing. It made Threshold 9 cautious. Rask whispered, good. Mara shook her head. No. Cautious things plan. A new alarm screamed across the Black Mercy. Cells 7, 11, and 14 changed from amber to green. Pell read the translation, voice hollow. 3 unaccounted prisoners detected aboard Black Mercy. Kaldan looked at the prison ship. Mara Ell slowly closed the black case. Then somewhere deep inside the human vessel, something began knocking from inside a cell that had been empty 5 minutes ago. The knocking came from cell 7. 3 slow taps. Then silence. Then 3 again. Not desperate. Patient. A prisoner who had spent centuries learning how to wait. Rask stood frozen in the central chamber of the Black Mercy, the black command case open at his feet, the null wedges still warm in his hands. His boarding team had survived pirates, vacuum fires, and debt collectors who fed captains to their own engines. But none of them wanted to look down that corridor. Warden Mara Ell did. She pushed herself away from the command pillar and took one step toward the sound. Her knees almost failed. Rask caught her by instinct. Mara looked at his hand on her arm. Do not become kind without instruction, she said. He released her immediately. Then he realized she had not said it because she disliked help. She had said it because kindness was now dangerous. Captain Veyr Kaldan heard the warning through the channel. What is in cell 7? Mara's face hardened. Mercy. Kaldan stared. That is a prisoner. That is what it calls itself. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Then a voice. Soft. Human. A woman crying. Please. Every Soryth aboard the Black Mercy went still. The voice came from behind the sealed door of cell 7, but it did not sound contained by metal. It sounded close. Personal. As if the speaker stood beside each listener and knew exactly how much pity they could carry before it became obedience. Please help me. Rask's weapon rose. Mara struck the barrel down with surprising strength. No. It sounds human. It learned from humans. The voice behind the cell door sobbed. I don't want to be alone anymore. One of Rask's youngest boarders, Tivil, took half a step forward. Mara saw it. Stop. Tivil froze. Tears had gathered in his lower eyes. She's trapped. Mara's voice went flat. Yes. She's begging. Yes. And you left her there? The old woman turned slowly. For the first time, Rask saw the full weight inside her expression. Not cruelty. Cost. We left entire rescue teams in there, Mara said. We left children's voices. Dead husbands. Lost mothers. Commanders begging forgiveness. Mercy speaks in whatever your conscience cannot survive ignoring. The cell door shuddered once. The crying woman whispered, Mara? The warden closed her eyes. The voice changed. Older now. Male. Gentle. Mara, it's cold. Her breathing stopped. Kaldan noticed. Warden. Mara did not answer. The voice behind Cell 7 continued. You promised you would come back. Rask looked from the door to the old woman. Who is that? Mara opened her eyes. My son. No one spoke. The Black Mercy seemed to shrink around them. The thing in Cell 7 had found her wound in seconds. Mara lifted one shaking hand and pointed at the black case. Mirror. Rask grabbed the folding mirror. Do not face it toward the door, she said. Face it toward me. He obeyed. The cracked mirror caught Mara's face, old, pale, furious, and afraid. She stared at her own reflection while her son's voice begged from behind the cell. Mom, please. I waited so long. Her jaw tightened. My son died before this ship launched. The voice answered instantly. You left me anyway. That one landed. Mara flinched as if struck. Cell 11 began knocking next. Not 3 taps. One long scrape. Metal against metal. Pell read from the glass knife bridge, voice trembling. Cell 11 detected active pressure fluctuation. Internal mass rising. Kaldan said, how does mass rise in an empty cell? Mara looked at the corridor. Threshold 9 brought friends back through the damage. From where? From mistakes. Cell 14 answered with laughter. Not one laugh. Hundreds. Each one in a different species' voice. The ship lights flickered. Rask backed toward the central chamber. Warden, what do we do? Mara took the first null wedge from his hand. We do what humans did when strength failed. What is that? We make rules simple enough to obey while terrified. She turned to the boarding team. Rule 1. No one opens a door because something inside deserves pity. The crying behind Cell 7 grew louder. Rule 2. No one answers a voice using a name it gives you. Cell 14 laughed harder. Rule 3. If I give an order that protects your pride instead of your survival, ignore me. Kaldan leaned toward the screen. You expect my crew to disobey you? I expect them to live. Mara moved down the corridor toward Cell 7. Rask grabbed the black case and followed. The others hesitated. Then followed him. On the glass knife, Kaldan watched the old woman approach the cell that spoke with her dead son's voice. He should have been thinking about profit. The Black Mercy held human technology beyond price. The command case alone could change the balance of salvage guild politics. Every cell mechanism, every survival protocol, every containment field could be sold to governments, pirates, and collectors. Instead, he found himself watching Mara Ell walk toward grief without surrendering to it. That frightened him more than Threshold 9. Because humans were not brave the way stories claimed. They were wounded and functional. That was worse. Mara stopped 3 meters from Cell 7. Null wedge. Floor seam. Rask dropped to one knee and placed the grey block against the base of the door. The crying stopped. A child's laugh replaced it. Mara's face did not move. Mirror. Left wall. Waist height. Tivil placed it with shaking hands. The mirror reflected the sealed cell door, but the reflection showed something different. Not metal. A garden. Sunlight. A small human boy standing barefoot in grass, smiling through the glass. Mara looked at the real door, not the reflection. Alarm. Rask lifted the hand crank device. The boy in the mirror looked at him. Please don't. Rask hesitated. Mara whispered, that is not a child. The boy smiled wider. But you wish it was. Rask cranked the alarm. The harsh mechanical ringing filled the corridor. Cell 7 screamed. Not like a woman. Not like a child. Like 1,000 throats realizing sympathy had failed. The door buckled inward. The null wedge burned white. Mara slammed the chalk-white sealant rod across the seam. Now! Rask and Tivil pressed black tape over the sealant, then copper wire around the handle, then another strip of tape across the mirror frame. Kaldan stared. You are sealing an extinction event with tape. Mara did not look up. I am convincing it the door is boring. That cannot work. It has worked longer than your civilization has existed. Cell 7 went silent. The indicator above it shifted from green to amber. then read. Contained. Rask exhaled. Too soon. Cell 11's door dented outward. Once. Twice. The third hit cracked the frame. Mara turned. Her face lost all softness. 11 is not mercy. The metal screamed again. What is it? Kaldan asked. Mara opened the black case and removed the dullest grey block inside. A famine that learned to walk. The cell door exploded outward. Cell 11 did not open. It burst. The door flew across the corridor like a slab of judgment and smashed into the opposite wall hard enough to fold human alloy. Rask threw himself backward. Tivol screamed. 2 boarders fired before anyone could stop them. Their plasma bolts vanished. Not deflected. Eaten. Something unfolded from the cell. At first, Captain Veyr Kaldan thought it was smoke. Pale grey, thin, almost graceful. Then the cloud touched a fallen piece of door metal, and the metal became dust. It touched the wall, and the wall thinned. It touched the emergency light, and the glow dimmed as if the brightness itself had been consumed. Warden Mara Ell stepped in front of Rask. Do not breathe near it. Rask stared through his visor. Our suits are sealed. That is for air, Mara said. 11 eats lack. No one understood. Then one of the boarders gasped. His oxygen meter dropped from full to 0 in 3 seconds. His suit had not failed. The space inside it had simply stopped containing anything useful. Mara grabbed the black case and shouted, "Vacuum posture." The Black Mercy answered before the Soryth could ask. Vacuum posture. Kneel. Lock joints. Reduce motion. Do not feed panic. The boarders dropped because the ship made the command sound less like advice than gravity. The grey thing drifted into the corridor. It had no eyes. No mouth. No limbs. Only hunger shaped like weather. The lights around it dimmed one by one. Frost formed on the floor, then cracked into powder. The painted warning symbols on the walls faded as if forgotten by the material they were printed on. Kaldan watched from the glass knife and felt his profit die completely. There was no selling this. There was only surviving it. What does it consume? He asked. Mara's answer came sharp. Everything that lets life continue. The grey cloud moved toward Tivol. The young boarder froze. His suit alarms began to scream. Pressure loss. Heat loss. Oxygen loss. Power loss. Each warning came faster than the last, as if his armor were being emptied of purpose. Rask reached for him. Mara hit his arm. No heroes. He'll die. Yes, if you teach 11 that loyalty brings bodies closer. Rask stared at her. Then Mara crawled forward herself. Old bones. Shaking hands. One knee dragging. She moved slowly, not toward Tivol, but toward a broken pipe along the wall. Kaldan understood a second later. She was not rescuing the boarder. She was changing the room. Mara pulled a copper spool from the black case and hooked it around the pipe. Then she threw the spool across the floor toward Rask. Circuit. Not chain. Rask caught it. Connect everyone to the deck. No touching skin. No pulling bodies. Make the ship bigger than each suit. Rask moved. So did the others. Not bravely. Mechanically. That was enough. They clipped copper wire to boots, belts, wall brackets, broken cell hinges. The wire ran across the corridor like a child's terrible drawing. Mara placed 2 null wedges at opposite ends, then slammed a mirror face down between them. The grey cloud paused. For the first time, 11 hesitated. Kaldan leaned toward the screen. It does not like circuits. It does not like being unable to choose the smallest meal, Mara said. Tivol's oxygen warning slowed. Mara pointed to Rask. Drag him by the wire. Rask wrapped the copper line around both arms and pulled. Tivol slid across the floor inch by inch, not touched by hands, not claimed by heroics, only moved as part of the room. 11 followed, but the circuit kept widening its appetite. Each time the grey cloud reached, it touched ship, wire, mirror, wedge, door frame, deck plate, and empty air at once. Too much. Too meaningless. Too human. Mara reached the broken cell 11 door and pressed a sealant rod against the frame. Nothing happened. The old human ship had no power there. Kaldan saw the problem. Glass knife, he snapped, send power through the boarding tether. Pell turned. Captain, that line is unstable. Low power. Dirty signal. Random pulse. No clean rhythm. Mara looked up at the nearest camera. For the first time, there was something like approval in her eyes. The boarding tether hummed. Weak electricity crawled through the Black Mercy's floor. The sealant rod in Mara's hand sparked white. She dragged it across the cell frame, drawing an uneven line that smoked against the metal. 11 surged. Rask pulled Tivol hard. Mara did not move. The grey cloud swept over her boots. Her suit alarm died instantly. Then her left leg stopped transmitting heat. She gritted her teeth and finished the seal. Mirror. Tivol, half-conscious, pushed the face-down mirror with one shaking hand. It slid across the floor and struck the base of the door. The grey cloud folded toward it. For one impossible second, the mirror showed a field of dead stars. Mara slammed the null wedge onto the glass. Containment phrase, she said. Rask shouted, what phrase? Mara's voice dropped. Enough. The ship heard her. The word traveled through the corridor. Enough. The grey cloud recoiled as if struck by a law older than physics. Cell 11's frame pulled inward. The dust gathered. The light returned in broken pieces. The hunger shrank back through the door seam, furious but thinning. Rask and two others forced the broken slab across the opening. Mara burned sealant over the edge until the rod died in her hand. The indicator above cell 11 flickered. Green. Amber. Then red. Contained. No one moved. No one cheered. Tivol was alive, barely. Mara collapsed against the wall. Rask crawled to her side. This time he did not touch her until she looked at him. Instruction, he asked. Her mouth twitched. Now you learn. He clipped her damaged suit into the copper circuit and dragged her away from the sealed door. On the glass knife, Kaldan looked at the tactical display. Cell 7 contained. Cell 11 contained. Cell 14 still green. The laughter from 14 had stopped. That frightened him most. Mara heard the silence too. Her eyes opened. 14 is listening. Kaldan checked the ship map. Cell 14 was not near them. It was 3 decks below. Beside the main reactor. Pell whispered, why would it go there? Mara pushed herself upright with the last of her strength. Because you brought ships. Kaldan's blood went cold. The glass knife trembled as every docking clamp on the Black Mercy released at once. Mara stared at the camera. 14 does not escape through doors. A new alarm screamed. The ancient prison ship's reactor began to wake. Mara finished the sentence. It escapes through engines. 14 reached the reactor before anyone reached 14. The Black Mercy had been built around its engine core like a fortress around a wound. Human engineers had understood one brutal truth. Any machine that could move between stars was also a door pretending to be fire. Captain Veyr Kaldan watched the prison ship's reactor wake on his tactical screen. Blue lines became white. White became red. Then every engine in the salvage fleet answered. Not by command. By sympathy. The glass knife trembled as its drive coils spun without permission. Pell screamed from navigation. Our engines are aligning with the Black Mercy. Shut them down. I did. Then shut them down harder. Pell looked at him with dead eyes. Captain, the drive is listening to something else. Across the fleet, the remaining salvage ships rotated toward the human prison vessel. Their engines warmed. Their jump fields began forming in broken, uneven pulses. Warden Mara Ell understood first. 14 is building a road. Rask supported her outside cell 11, copper wire still trailing from both their suits. To where? He asked. Mara looked toward the deck beneath them. To every place your ships remember. Kaldan felt the answer hollow him out. Trade ports. Guild docks. Fuel stations. Black markets. Colonies. Every destination stored inside Soryth navigation logs. Every safe harbor his crew had visited. Every secret route they had stolen. If 14 entered the engine network, It would not escape to space. It would escape to maps. The old woman pushed Rask away and stood alone. Black case. Rask picked it up. What is 14? The corridor lights flickered. Far below, near the reactor decks, the laughter began again. Hundreds of voices at first. Then thousands. Then one voice made from the crowd, warm and welcoming. Open the way, it whispered. All roads want travelers. Mara's face turned to stone. 14 is the reason we stopped calling some things intelligent. It does not conquer planets. It convinces civilizations that opening the next gate is destiny. Pell whispered across the channel, a religion. No, Mara said. A direction. The glass knife's engine surged. Kaldan grabbed his chair before he fell. Warden, solution. Burn your maps. The bridge went silent. Kaldan stared at her. Say that again. Delete every navigation archive on every ship. Manual purge. Physical if needed. 14 is using remembered destinations as exits. Pell looked at Kaldan. The salvage captain felt years of profit tremble at the edge of deletion. Secret routes. Hidden caches. Smuggler lanes. Derelict coordinates. Everything that made him powerful. Mara's voice sharpened. Captain, greed has already opened one prison today. Kaldan bared his teeth. Then fired his sidearm into the central data spine. The bridge erupted in sparks. Purge navigation archives. His crew obeyed. Across the salvage fleet, crews smashed memory cores, ripped chart crystals from consoles, and burned root libraries with plasma cutters. Decades of illegal wealth died in seconds. 14 screamed. The sound came from every engine at once. Not pain. Offense. As if the universe had denied it a promised invitation. The jump fields around the ships collapsed one by one. But the Black Mercy's reactor kept waking. Mara looked toward the lower decks. It still has this ship's map. Rask tightened his grip on the black case. Then we purge it. You cannot. Why? Because I am the map. No one spoke. Mara touched the side of her head. Beneath her white hair, a faint surgical line caught the red emergency light. The Warden carries the final containment routes. If every system fails, I remember where not to go. Kaldan understood then why the pod had not held a younger soldier, a machine, or a committee. It had held memory. Old, human, stubborn memory. Mara opened the black case and removed the last item. Not a weapon. A brass key. Plain. Old. Ridiculous. Rask stared. A key. Mara almost smiled. Humans like symbols. They make hard choices small enough for the hand. She began walking toward the reactor access shaft. Rask followed. So I come with you. No. He ignored her. Mara stopped and looked back. Rule 3. Rask swallowed. If I give an order that protects your pride instead of your survival, ignore me. This protects your survival, he said. No, she answered. It protects your guilt. That stopped him. Mara's voice softened by 1 degree. Live usefully. That is harder. She entered the reactor shaft alone. The cameras followed until heat distorted them. The lower deck no longer looked like engineering. It looked like a cathedral made of engines, cables, and open mouths. 14 had bent the reactor architecture into repeating arches, each one aimed toward a different impossible darkness. At the center stood a child. Human. Barefoot. Smiling. Mara did not slow. 14 spoke with the child's voice. You are tired. Yes. You are alone. Yes. You guarded monsters until you became one. Mara stopped before the reactor core. Behind her, every Soryth listened. 14 smiled. Why did humanity leave one old woman to guard us? Mara inserted the brass key into a slot that had not existed a moment before. Because I was the one you were afraid of. She turned the key. The Black Mercy woke completely. Not as a ship. As a cage. Every corridor folded inward. Every cell sealed with white fire. Every engine reversed its hunger. The reactor stopped trying to open roads and began swallowing them. 14's child face vanished. The crowd screamed. Threshold 9 howled through blocked doors. Mercy wept in Mara's son's voice. 11 beat against its seals like famine denied a field. Mara stood in the center of it all and spoke one final command. Black Mercy. Warden present. Containment over salvation. The ship answered. Confirmed. Kaldan lunged toward the screen. Mara, get out. She looked up through static, old eyes steady. Captain, the next time you see a human warning, read it before you price it. The reactor light turned white. The Black Mercy vanished. No explosion. No wreckage. No glorious fire. The prison ship folded into a point of impossible darkness and sealed itself behind a ring of dead stars. The salvage fleet drifted powerless in the silence left behind. Hours later, human rescue vessels arrived from the nearest watch station. They found the Soryth crews alive, broke, mapless, and quiet. When the human officer asked what had happened, Kaldan gave them the black box recordings and claimed nothing. No salvage rights. No derelict law. No profit. Only a warning. He recorded it himself before the humans took him into custody. This is Captain Veyr Kaldan of the Glass Knife. The HCS Black Mercy is not abandoned. It is not lost. It is not a prize. He looked into the recorder, and for the first time in his life, greed had no place on his face. If you find it, leave. If you see open cells, pray they are still empty. And if the warden wakes, obey her faster than we did. The transmission spread through every salvage guild within a month. Pirates stopped joking about human prison ships. No captain in deep space would cut open a door marked with warden authority again. And somewhere beyond mapped stars, inside a ship older than fear and meaner than mercy, an old human woman remained at her post. Not dead. Not sleeping. Watching 19 cells. Waiting for the universe to become stupid again. On the main display, Hauler 2 opened fire.